4:47 a.m. Roanoke County, Virginia. 11 agents in tactical gear moved single file along the right side of a poured concrete driveway. The neighborhood was still. A cul-de-sac of 9 homes at the edge of a new construction development, 30 minutes west of downtown Roanoke. 8 of them had motion sensor lamps, ring cameras mounted above garage doors, cars parked at the curb. The 9th had a lawn that hadn't been cut since October. A sprinkler timer cycling through its programmed arc on dead grass. And a delivery slip taped to the storm door, dated March, that had been there long enough for the bottom corner to peel back from the plastic sleeve. A second team moved silently around the west side of the property toward the walkout basement. Both units had been on the ground for 11 minutes, waiting on a signal from an operational command post established 4 blocks east in the parking lot of a shuttered hardware store. Inside that house, 5 young women, all United States citizens, all reported missing from 3 different states. The earliest last seen at a Virginia Beach bus terminal 138 days before. What broke this case was not surveillance footage, not a confidential informant, not the Homeland Security Investigations probe that had been running out of the Roanoke field office since late November 2025. What broke this case was a handwritten address on the back of a blank landscaping invoice, written by a man who estimated lawn care contracts for a living, and had done 2 tours in Afghanistan as an Army combat medic before he ever held a pair of hedge clippers. His name was Marcus Webb. He ran a 4-man crew out of a commercial strip on the south side of Salem, Virginia. 36 years old. No law enforcement background. No connection to the federal investigation. On a Tuesday morning in late February 2026, he drove past a house he had never been contracted to touch, noticed something that didn't add up, and wrote 1 address and 4 observations on the back of an invoice. He left it in a triage inbox at the county sheriff's substation on his way home. He didn't follow up. He had 3 estimates the next morning. The agents moving up that driveway at 4:47 a.m. did not yet know about the spreadsheet found tucked into the back cover of a composition notebook in the master bedroom. They did not know that the house they were breaching was one node in a network that had been operating across 4 states since the fall of 2025, or that the 41 addresses on that printed list would expand the case well beyond what any single task force could close in a single morning. They were focused on 1 door, 1 house, 5 women. Marcus Webb had been doing commercial landscaping estimates in that subdivision since October 2025. New construction, fast filling, homeowners wanting yards before winter. He signed 12 contracts that first afternoon. He knew the streets well. He knew which houses had dogs that ran to the fence line when a truck idled at the curb, which had ring cameras aimed at the driveway, which owners came outside to watch the crew work. He was good at reading properties. That was part of the job. You learn, from years of estimates, what a house that is being used looks like versus one that is waiting for something. He had never been to the 2-story colonial at the end of Caldwell Loop. It was not one of his accounts. He passed it every time he came through. Late February 2026, a Tuesday. Webb drove into the development for a retaining wall estimate at a property 3 houses north of the loop. He noted the colonial on his way in, noted it again on his way out. The lawn was overgrown in a way that was wrong for the season. Virginia winters are cold enough to push grass into dormancy. It goes flat, pale yellow, and stays there until the thaw. This grass was tall. It had grown through the fall and had not been touched since the last warm weeks of October. That detail by itself was not unusual. Some property management companies run vacant rentals through winter without cutting. It happens. But the sprinkler timer was running. Webb could see the programmed arc from the driver's seat, a slow mechanical sweep across frozen dead grass, water spreading in a thin sheet across ground that could absorb nothing. Someone was paying the utility account. Someone was maintaining the property management functions of that address, while not maintaining the property itself, In Webb's experience, that pairing, paid water, untouched lawn, was not the signature of an empty house. It was the signature of a house that was occupied by people who were not managing the exterior. He looked at the storm door. A white delivery slip in the clear plastic sleeve on the frame, the kind the post office leaves for missed packages. Webb rolled down the truck window and read the date from where he sat in the driveway. March something. He was in that truck in late February. The slip had been there long enough that the bottom edge had curled away from the plastic. It had gone through at least one cycle of cold and damp. It was not new. He pulled a blank invoice from the folder on the passenger seat. 111 Caldwell Loop. He wrote it across the top and listed 4 observations below: grass not cut since fall, sprinkler running on dead lawn, delivery slip dated ahead of current date, no activity or vehicles observed. He clipped the invoice to the bid folder he was already planning to drop at the Roanoke County Sheriff's substation on Route 419, a converted storefront near a Sheetz where his cousin worked dispatch and where Webb had been dropping off permits and paperwork for years. He left the folder in the triage inbox near the reception window. Got back in the truck. He had 3 estimates the next morning. The folder sat in that inbox for 9 days. Deputy Cassandra Elling had been with the Roanoke County Sheriff's Office for 14 months. She was not assigned to property complaints, not assigned to welfare checks, not working in the investigative division. She found the bid folder on a Sunday afternoon in early March 2026 because she had a habit of reorganizing the triage inbox when it backed up, and nobody else ever did it. She read through the contents. At the back was the paper-clipped invoice. She read Webb's note twice. The property at 111 Caldwell Loop was registered in the county assessor's database under the name Linden Property Holdings LLC, incorporated in Delaware, September 9, 2025. The registered agent of record was a commercial mail forwarding service in Wilmington. Principal officers, listed at the minimum level required by Delaware law, which pointed through a single-member designation to a second LLC incorporated in Wyoming. The Wyoming entity listed a registered agent in Nevada. No identifiable human being appeared at any point in the ownership chain. 3 rental listing platforms showed the property as between tenants since November 2025. One had listing photographs from the previous summer: wood floors, stainless appliances, a rear deck with a gas grill. The photographs had not been updated. No lease was on file with the county. No utility service transfer to a named tenant appeared in the database. Elling pulled the water account. Consumption at 111 Caldwell Loop had been climbing for 138 days. The first jump appeared in the billing cycle that opened in the second week of November 2025, a step up from the baseline registered during the months the house sat on the market, followed by a steady incremental rise through December, through January, through February. By the date of Elling's check, the property was consuming water at 4 times the average residential baseline for a single-family home in that zip code. The account was set to auto-pay through an online portal registered to a prepaid Visa card linked to Linden Property Holdings. No past due notices. No flags. No alert of any kind in the account history. The system had no mechanism for flagging a vacant property that was paying its bills on time. Elling called the FBI Richmond field office at 8:47 a.m. on a Monday morning. Special Agent Veronica Marsh had been coordinating the FBI-HSI task force on human trafficking from the Roanoke sub-office since January 2026. In November 2025, they'd opened a preliminary investigation into a commercial placement agency in a Norfolk strip mall. The agency ran legitimate operations, hotel staffing, cleaning services, light industrial work, for 4 years with no adverse history. But in the 12 months before the inquiry, 9 young women had been reported missing from 3 jurisdictions within 40 miles. All adults, U.S. citizens, ages 22 to 27, no criminal records. All had contacted the agency about jobs before losing touch. None of the 9 had been located. Marsh was running 2 burner phone numbers on pen register surveillance, capturing call metadata, geographic movement, and contact patterns, not content. She had subpoenas pending on the Delaware LLC registered to the Norfolk agency's principal address. She had a commercial mailbox in Chesapeake under monitoring. What she did not have was a physical location for any active operation tied to the network. Deputy Elling's call reached Marsh's desk at 9:14 a.m. Marsh called back inside 6 minutes. She pulled the utility data by noon. The consumption trend on the Caldwell Loop water account was unmistakable. A straight diagonal line on the usage graph from mid-November 2025 through early March 2026, exactly consistent with continuous multi-person occupation. Not occasional spikes. Not a broken line. Continuous. Occupied. She opened a full preliminary inquiry on Linden that afternoon and filed legal records requests to Delaware and the county assessor simultaneously. Delaware responded in 72 hours. Linden Property Holdings was incorporated 6 weeks before the Caldwell Loop closing. No history before September 9, 2025. The Wyoming LLC that owned it was incorporated in the same narrow window. Marsh's paralegal cross-referenced Wyoming records against the Nevada agent's client list and found 13 Wyoming LLCs, all created August-October 2025, all with the same pattern, no humans named, single member pointing to blank structures. The 13 entities owned additional properties in Maryland, Delaware, and D.C., all purchased in a 90-day fall window, all listed as vacant on county records. 13 more addresses. Marsh briefed the HSI the next morning. Authorization came for a full task force case. Here's something that kept coming back to me while reading through the case documentation. The utility account at 111 Caldwell Loop had been reviewed twice before Webb left his note at the substation. In December 2025, a utility worker submitted a service request after a missed meter read. Standard form, routed to a supervisor, rescheduled for January. The read happened, the bill processed, payment received on time via autopay. No human ever looked at the usage trend. The system had no flag for a vacant property paying water bills on a climbing curve. Paid on time. Account active. House invisible. 138 days. The legal threshold for a Title III wiretap, real-time interception of communications, required probable cause, specificity of target, and documented exhaustion of lesser investigative means. Marsh had anomalous utility data and layered offshore ownership. Sufficient for probable cause. Specificity needed a direct link to existing subjects, the placement agency, and the burner phones already monitored. That link came from the expanded property records search. Among the 13 addresses, one was a Portsmouth townhouse 3.8 miles from the agency. Same occupancy signature, vacant since November 2025, consumption 4 times residential average. More critically, it appeared in pen register metadata, twice in 6 weeks, calls from an already flagged burner phone. That satisfied specificity. The obstacle was time. A Title III application required court review, and the supervising magistrate was carrying a complex multi-defendant case that week. The application sat in scheduling queue for 4 days before reaching the clerk's calendar. Marsh flagged it urgent. The clerk inserted it into a 45-minute window on a Thursday morning. The magistrate reviewed, authorized with one minor modification to the geographic scope language, and signed at 11:51 a.m. The wiretap on the Caldwell Loop burner phone went live 4 hours later. 4 days into the intercept, a handler on the monitored line discussed a move scheduled for Friday. A consolidation of individuals at a second address in Maryland. The conversation included a reference to a problem at the Roanoke house. The word appeared twice. The second time it appeared, it was followed by a number. 3 days. The agents had 6 days, and then they had 3. What's most striking about what happened next is not the decision itself, it's the speed. The ASAC's authorization came in under 30 minutes of being briefed on the 3 days reference. Protocols that normally require multi-agency deliberation across a 48-hour review window were compressed into a single morning conference call. That speed was not recklessness. It communicated something about what the task force believed they were dealing with inside that house, something that the case file, in its public portions, does not specify. The wiretap content is sealed, but the speed with which experienced federal supervisors moved is its own kind of evidence. Marsh briefed the Richmond ASAC at 7 a.m. The choice was not between good options. Option 1, hold on Caldwell Loop. Continue building toward a network-wide simultaneous takedown, except that the women at that address would be moved to an unknown Maryland location before any warrant could be executed. The investigation would continue. The women at that address would not be among those it recovered. Option 2, breach Caldwell Loop before Friday, take the 5 men associated with that property, and accept that the wider network would be alerted within hours and begin clearing other locations. The ASAC authorized Option 2 at 9:42 a.m. The United States Attorney's Office for the Western District was on a call by 10:15. The sealed indictment against 5 named defendants, all identified from the pen register metadata and Title III content, was filed at 4:17 p.m. The original prosecution timeline had targeted the following month. Federal prosecutors moved the indictment forward by 48 hours. The breach was set for 4:47 a.m. Thursday. Here's the take that will probably draw some pushback. The 9 properties on the 41 address spreadsheet that were found empty after Thursday's arrests, rooms vacated in the hours following the Roanoke breach, doors left unlocked, cleaning supplies left behind. Those are a real cost of the decision that was made. Not a procedural failure. Not a mistake. The decision was right. 5 women with a 3-day margin do not wait for a network operation that might take 2 additional months. But the 9 empty addresses in the case file represent people who were moved under emergency conditions between Thursday morning and Friday evening, documented nowhere, traceable to nothing. That cost should be named even when the decision was correct. Would you have made the same call? 5 women at immediate risk against an unknown number of people at locations you can't yet reach. The math doesn't clean up no matter how many times you run it. Comment yes if you think the task force made the right call. No if you think they should have held and mapped the full network first. In the 48 hours before the breach, the task force executed 3 work streams simultaneously. Property intelligence. The county permitting office had the original construction plans for 1111 Caldwell Loop on file, submitted when the development was permitted in 2023. Standard colonial layout, main floor with open kitchen and living area, half bath off the entryway, a rear utility room. Upper floor, 3 bedrooms and a full bath across the front, and a 4th room at the end of a short hallway off the master, labeled bonus room in the original plans, accessible through an interior door. The bonus room did not appear in any of the rental listing photographs for the property. Communication blackout. The task force electronic surveillance unit prepared a targeted signal suppression protocol for the block, scheduled for activation at 4:45 a.m., 2 minutes before breach entry. Simultaneous arrest coordination. Warrants for all 5 identified defendants were staged across multiple teams. 2 would be taken at the Roanoke address. 3 were located through cell tower and pen register data at addresses in Norfolk and Portsmouth. All 5 warrant teams were briefed in separate locations and had no communication with each other during the staging period. The operational command post assembled in the parking lot 4 blocks east of Caldwell Loop at 2 a.m. Thursday. 11 agents from the Richmond SWAT unit, 4 HSI special agents, 2 task force officers from the Roanoke County Sheriff's Office, one of them, Deputy Cassandra Elling, briefed into the operation 48 hours earlier, assigned to the command post perimeter. Not part of the entry team. She was the one who had pulled the water bill. One complication emerged at 4:40, 7 minutes before breach. A task force officer on a final slow drive-by noted that the exterior garage doors on the west side of the property appeared sealed from the inside. The gap at the base of the roll-up panels had been packed tight, foam insulation or dense weather stripping, visible in the low beam sweep of the pass-by. If the interior access door from the garage to the main hallway had been similarly blocked, the secondary team assigned to that entry point was facing a delay. The SWAT team leader made the adjustment in under 4 minutes. The garage was downgraded from primary breach point to support position. The rear basement team, already staged at the walkout, became the secondary entry. The front stack held position at the main door. 11 seconds of repositioning time. Nothing else. The signal went through at 4:47 a.m. The front door came off the frame on the first hit. The main floor was empty. Kitchen table with 3 mismatched chairs. A coffee maker with a burned-out carafe left on the heating element. Stacked takeout containers near the sink. A power strip running across the hardwood floors to a folding table in the corner of the living area that held 3 mobile phones, all powered off, all with their rear panels removed and SIM slots emptied. Primary team cleared the main floor in under 90 seconds. 2 men were located in the process, one in the finished basement, one in a rear bedroom off the main hallway. Both were taken without incident. The 3 remaining targets were simultaneously taken in Norfolk and Portsmouth in a 4-minute 12-second window from first contact to last arrest confirmation. The primary team moved to the staircase. Upper floor. 3 bedrooms, doors open, mattresses on the floors, no frames, no furniture beyond the mattresses, blackout material fixed to each window frame with duct tape. Closets cleared. No personal effects beyond stacked folded blankets in each room. In the 3rd bedroom, a pair of men's work boots near the closet door. At the end of the short hallway off the master was a wall. Floor-to-ceiling shelving, white-painted plywood, fitted cleanly against the drywall on 3 sides, and loaded with stacked towels and folded blankets in a neat arrangement that read as a linen closet. A framed print of a coastal scene at eye level. A generic stock image in a thin black frame. At the upper left corner of the shelving unit, where a panel would normally butt against a wall frame, was a magnetic latch, set flush and concealed behind the lower edge of the frame. The team leader found it on the second pass. He pulled the frame forward 2 centimeters. The latch disengaged. The entire shelving panel swung inward on a piano hinge. 4:51 a.m. The room behind the panel was approximately 12 feet by 9. A single dormer window on the far wall, the glass painted over from the inside, with what appeared to be flat black paint applied from inside the room. 4 mattresses on the floor in 2 rows. A bare overhead bulb controlled by a switch on the interior face of the plywood panel. A 5-gallon water jug on a small folding table near the door, with a box of protein bars alongside it. 5 young women. 4 of them were awake. They had heard the breach, the door coming off the frame downstairs, the team moving through the main floor, footsteps on the staircase, voices calling clear in succession through the upper rooms. They were awake, and they were against the far wall, together, when the shelving panel opened. The 5th was on the mattress nearest the door, lying with her back to the room. She was breathing. She did not respond to the initial call. Medical teams were staged at the end of the driveway. All 5 women were outside the house at 4:58 a.m., 7 minutes from breach. They were transported immediately to Carilion Roanoke Memorial Hospital. The evidence teams worked the property for 6 hours. Recovery log: 5 mobile phones from a kitchen drawer, all with SIM cards removed. A school composition notebook from the master bedroom, 8 months of dated entries in a handwritten shorthand code, consistent with a scheduling and logistics record covering the period from mid-November 2025 through the week of the breach. $16,400 in cash, vacuum-sealed in 3 separate packages, and stored inside a mesh laundry hamper in the master bedroom closet. A prepaid Visa card registered to Linden Property Holdings, LLC. Commercial cleaning supplies, case quantity. A case of bottled water. A Bluetooth speaker. And a folded printout found tucked inside the back cover of the composition notebook. The printout was a spreadsheet. 2 columns, address, status notation. 41 rows. Every address on the list was a rental property. The status notations used a shorthand designation system, codes indicating occupancy level, operational phase, and what the task force forensic unit assessed as a scheduling horizon for each location. Field offices began spot-checking the list within hours of the discovery. By early afternoon Thursday, 12 of the 41 addresses had been confirmed to have utility consumption anomalies consistent with the Caldwell Loop pattern. Properties listed as vacant on county records, consuming water at multiples of the residential baseline, accounts paid automatically through prepaid instruments registered to LLC structures with no identifiable human ownership. 7 of the 12 had been flagged by local law enforcement at some point in the preceding 6 months for reasons entirely unrelated to trafficking. A noise complaint, a parking dispute, a welfare check request that resulted in no follow-up. Each flag had been processed, documented, and closed without generating any investigation of the property itself. The task force escalated to a national coordination call at 2:15 p.m. Thursday. By Friday morning, 9 of the 12 anomalous addresses had been vacated. The rooms were empty when investigators arrived. In 2 of the 9, agents found configurations consistent with rapid departure following the Roanoke arrests. Mattresses left in place, blackout material still taped to the windows, commercial cleaning supplies on the counter but surfaces wiped. Someone in the network had been watching Thursday morning. The Maryland address referenced in the intercepted wiretap call, the intended destination of the Friday move, was placed under surveillance by noon Thursday, within hours of the Roanoke arrests. It was already empty. The people who had been staging that location had cleared it before any federal team reached the street. 3 of the 12 anomalous properties remained under active inquiry as of the date this case entered the public court docket. 4 of the 41 addresses on the spreadsheet had not yet been reached by the assigned field offices. There is a line in the federal case filing that reads almost like a footnote. The composition notebook, the evidence log notes, contained 9 coded designations that did not correspond to any of the 41 addresses on the printed spreadsheet. The Task Force Forensic Linguistics team assessed them as distinct location codes, formatted differently from the spreadsheet notations, consistent with either an earlier operational phase or a parallel geography the printed list did not include. What those 9 designations refer to has not been disclosed in any public filing. They are in evidence. Their meaning is not on the record. The 5 young women recovered from the room at the end of the hallway were not named in any document made available to the public. The United States Attorney's Office confirmed only that all 5 were adult women between the ages of 22 and 26, United States citizens, reported missing from Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland. The earliest last seen by family at a Virginia Beach bus terminal 138 days before the breach. 2 of the 5 had not been reported missing at all. Not from indifference. Both women were adults who had drifted from regular contact with family over time and had told people close to them, before their disappearance, that they were taking jobs in a resort area or relocating for work. Federal investigators characterized those explanations in the case documentation as coached departure narratives, a pattern the task force had seen in multiple prior cases connected to the Norfolk Placement Agency. The accounts the women had given their families, in the days before they lost contact, were what they had been told to say and what they believed they were saying. The context that explained those words only became clear from the inside of the network. 6 defendants in total were charged in connection with the case. 5 were taken at or in connection with the Caldwell Loop address. The 6th was the front-facing manager of the Norfolk Placement Agency, a woman in her 40s whose name appeared on the LLC formation documents and who was taken into custody at the agency's offices at 2:45 p.m. Thursday afternoon, hours after the Roanoke breach. The placement agency was closed by federal order at the time of her arrest. As of the date the case entered the public docket, she had retained private representation and had not entered a plea. The wiretap content from 14 days of authorized interception captured references to 2 additional individuals not among the 6 defendants. One was referred to by an internal numerical designation throughout the recordings. The other was referenced once, on day 4 of the intercept, as the one who handles Delaware. No public identification has been made for either individual. Neither is named in any court filing available on the public record. The United States Attorney's Office filed a notice of intent to pursue criminal forfeiture of all properties held under the beneficial ownership network, 43 addresses in 4 states, combined assessed value in excess of $6 million. The forfeiture proceeding was pending as of the most recent public filing date. Marcus Webb found out what his note had triggered 3 days after the breach. Not from a law enforcement notification. A neighbor 2 streets over in the development sent him a text with a screenshot of a local news brief naming the street without naming the house. Webb called the substation number he had on file for dropping off permit paperwork. The duty deputy answered. She told him she could not discuss active investigations. She thanked him for contacting the office. He got back in his truck. His invoice appears in the federal case file as Exhibit 7. The evidence log describes it as tip documentation, anonymous civilian source, submitted to the Roanoke County Sheriff's Office. The address is listed. The 4 observations are transcribed verbatim. The date is recorded as late February 2026. Webb's name does not appear in the filing. He was not identified as a witness. He was not asked to testify. The note is a handwritten line on the back of a standard commercial lawn care invoice, written in the same pen he used to write estimates. It was in the triage inbox for 9 days. It is now the first piece of evidence in a federal forfeiture case spanning 43 properties across 4 states. The network centered on Caldwell Loop is dismantled. 5 defendants in custody, 1 awaiting plea, 2 individuals from the wiretap unaccounted for in the public record. 9 empty addresses. 9 coded designations in a composition notebook with no corresponding location in any public filing. 41 addresses on a printed spreadsheet, some cleared, some still under inquiry. The demand that assembled this network did not end on Caldwell Loop.